Elvis, the people that he knew before.
There's a particular kind of silence that comes with being the last person alive who knows the truth. It's not peaceful. It's not restful. It's the kind of silence that presses down on your chest in the middle of the night and asks you one question over and over. When does staying quiet stop being loyalty and start being betrayal? My name is Jerry Schilling. I'm 70 years old, and I'm done protecting people who spent 47 years protecting only themselves. I met Elvis Presley when I was 12 years old. He was 19 playing touch football in a Memphis park, and he invited me to join the game. That moment changed my entire life. Not because I became famous, I didn't. Not because I got rich, I didn't do that either. But because from that day forward, I was part of Elvis's world. Not as a fan, not as an employee, as a friend, as family, as someone who was there for the boring Tuesday afternoons and the historic Saturday nights. The mundane and the legendary, all of it. I was there when he married Priscilla. I was there when Lisa Marie was born. I was there through the movie years, the Vegas years, the comeback specials, and the final tour. I was there on August 16, 1977, when I got the phone call that Elvis was dead, and I was one of the last people to see him alive. You need to understand something. I'm not a bitter ex-employee with an axe to grind. I'm not a family member fighting over inheritance scraps. I'm not an opportunist trying to cash in on Elvis's name 50 years later. I had a career outside of Elvis. I managed the Beach Boys. I worked in Hollywood. I built a life that didn't depend on staying in Elvis's orbit. But I never forgot what I saw. I never stopped knowing what I knew. And for 47 years, I made a choice to stay silent because I genuinely believed, that eventually the truth would correct itself. That eventually the people who needed justice would get it. That eventually someone with actual authority would look at what happened to Elvis's estate, to his family, to his daughter, and say, wait a minute, this isn't right. I was wrong. Vernon Presley died in 1979, 2 years after Elvis. He died without ever fully understanding what had been done to his son's estate, what was being done to his granddaughter's inheritance. Mini-Me died in 1980. Delta died in 1993. All the people who raised Elvis, who knew him before he was Elvis Presley, the icon, they're all gone. They died without getting to tell their side of the story. And then there's Lisa Marie. Lisa Marie Presley spent her entire adult life fighting to understand her own inheritance, fighting to control what was supposedly put in trust for her benefit, fighting to untangle a web of financial decisions that had been made in her name but without her consent, fighting to figure out why she, Elvis Presley's only child, had to battle so hard just to access what her father left for her. She died in January 2023, 54 years old, and she died still fighting. That's when something broke in me. That's when the weight of silence became too much. Because Lisa Marie's death meant there was nobody left. Nobody who could challenge the official narrative from a position of absolute authority. Nobody who could say, I was there, I saw it, and this is not what happened. Nobody except me. I'm the last man standing from Elvis's inner circle. The last person who was there from the beginning, there at the end, and there for everything that happened after. And if I die without telling the truth, the real truth, not the sanitized version, not the PR-approved story, then the lies win. Forever. So here's what I'm about to do. I'm going to tell you what I witnessed, what I saw with my own eyes, what I heard with my own ears, what I know to be true because I was standing in the room when it happened. This isn't speculation. This isn't gossip. This isn't conspiracy theory or bitter reminiscence. This is testimony. This is the difference between what the world has been told and what actually happened. And I'm telling it now because every single person who could have contradicted me, who could have told their own version, who could have fought back, they're gone. Vernon's gone, Mini-Me's gone, Delta's gone, and Lisa Marie, God rest her beautiful soul, she's gone too. The only people left are the ones who benefited from the lies, the ones who spent decades building empires on foundations of half-truths and convenient omissions, the ones who turned Elvis's death into their own personal gold rush, while the people who actually loved him were drowning in grief. I stayed quiet for Lisa Marie. I thought if I kept my mouth shut, if I didn't add fuel to the fire, maybe she'd eventually win her battles. Maybe she'd get control of what was rightfully hers. Maybe she'd get to tell her own story without me muddying the waters. But she didn't win. She died fighting. And her daughter Riley is now trying to publish Lisa Marie's memoir. The book where Lisa Marie finally told the truth about what it was like to be Elvis Presley's daughter while someone else controlled Elvis Presley's legacy. I've read some of what Lisa Marie wrote, and it confirms everything I witnessed, everything I knew, everything I've been carrying for 47 years. So this is my promise to you, and more importantly to Elvis. I'm going to tell the truth, the whole truth, about what happened in the hours and days after Elvis died, about the decisions that were made while his family was too shattered to function, about the money that was really there, about the lies that were told to justify taking it, about what Elvis actually wanted for his daughter, his family, his legacy, and about who made sure none of those wishes came true. I'm 70 years old. I won't be here forever, but the truth I'm about to tell you, that's going to outlast all of us. August 16th, 1977, 2:47 in the afternoon, I get the phone call, Elvis is dead. I need you to understand what that moment felt like. Not just the shock, everyone felt that. The entire world felt that. But the specific, suffocating horror of knowing that the person who'd been the center of gravity for so many lives, for so many people's entire existence, was just gone. And the instant knowledge that everything was about to fall apart. I drove to Graceland immediately. By the time I got there, the mansion was already filling with people. Family members arriving in waves, each one more destroyed than the last. Friends who'd gotten the news and just started driving. Staff members who didn't know what else to do but show up. And Vernon Presley was in his bedroom, and the sound coming from that room was something I hope you never have to hear. A father's grief, raw and total and absolutely shattering. Lisa Marie was 9 years old. She'd just lost her daddy. She was wandering through the house in this daze, trying to understand why all these people were crying, why everyone kept hugging her, why her grandfather was making those sounds. 9 years old. And in 72 hours, her entire life was going to be reorganized around her, and she wouldn't even know it was happening. Priscilla arrived that evening. She'd been divorced from Elvis for 4 years. She'd moved on, new relationship, new life in California, new identity separate from being Mrs. Elvis Presley. But the moment she walked through those doors at Graceland, something shifted in her. I saw it. I was standing right there. She didn't arrive as a grieving ex-wife. She arrived as someone who'd already decided what came next. Now, before you think I'm being unfair, I understand that everyone processes grief differently. I understand that some people handle trauma by going into action mode, by organizing, by taking charge because it's easier than feeling the feelings. I've seen that before, but this was different. This wasn't trauma response. This was strategy. Within hours, and I mean hours, not days, Priscilla had positioned herself at the center of every conversation that mattered. Who was handling the funeral arrangements? Priscilla needed to be consulted. Who was dealing with the press? Priscilla would coordinate. Who was making decisions about the estate, about Elvis's assets, about what happened next? Well, naturally, Priscilla had thoughts about that too. And here's the thing that made my stomach turn even then, even in the fog of grief. Vernon was in no condition to make decisions. The man had just lost his son, his only child, his whole world. He couldn't string sentences together. He'd start talking and then just stop, stare at nothing. You'd have to say his name 3 or 4 times before he'd even hear you. But documents were being put in front of him anyway. I remember this moment specifically. It was probably 24 hours after Elvis died. I walked into the dining room and Priscilla was sitting at the table with Vernon and some lawyers I'd never seen before. They had papers spread out, legal documents, and they were explaining something to Vernon about the estate, about executor roles, about what needed to be signed right away to protect everything Elvis built. Vernon was nodding, but his eyes were empty. He wasn't processing anything. He was just going through motions because people in authority were telling him he needed to. I asked what was being signed. Priscilla smiled, and I'll never forget this smile because it wasn't warm, it was patient in the way you're patient with someone who doesn't understand that the adults are handling things. And she said they were just making sure all the legal necessities were covered, making sure the estate was protected, making sure Lisa Marie's inheritance was secure. All the right words, all the soothing, reasonable phrases. But I'd worked with Elvis on business matters. I knew what his estate planning looked like. I knew what he'd set up. And what was being described to Vernon didn't match what Elvis had told me he wanted. When I tried to ask more questions, I was redirected. Gently but firmly. This was family business, legal business, already being handled. Don't worry, Jerry, everything's under control. That phrase, everything's under control, I heard it a dozen times in those first 72 hours. And every time I heard it, more decisions were being made. More papers were being signed. More of Elvis's extended family was being quietly shuffled out of important conversations. By the second day, there was a clear structure forming. Priscilla was speaking to the lawyers. Priscilla was coordinating with the banks. Priscilla was deciding what information got shared with the family and what didn't. And anyone who asked too many questions was pulled aside and told, kindly, always kindly, that this wasn't the time, that we all needed to focus on the funeral, that the business details would get sorted out later once everyone wasn't so emotional. Except the business details were getting sorted out right then, in those exact moments when everyone was too emotional to fight back. I watched family members, aunts, uncles, cousins who'd been part of Elvis's daily life for decades, try to be involved in decisions about his belongings, about Graceland, about what happened next. And I watched them get frozen out, not dramatically, not with shouting or confrontation, but with bureaucracy, with "we'll have to check with the lawyers about that," with "let's table that discussion for now," with the slow, methodical construction of walls between the family and any real authority. By August 18th, the day of Elvis's funeral, Vernon had signed documents making Priscilla co-executor of the estate, along with him and the National Bank of Commerce. On paper, it looked reasonable. The ex-wife who understood the entertainment industry, the father who knew Elvis's wishes, the financial institution that could provide stability. But in practice, Vernon was dying. Literally, his health was failing. The bank was a bureaucratic entity that would defer to whoever seemed most competent. And Priscilla was organized, articulate, already positioned as the person with answers. The power structure had shifted completely. In 72 hours, while everyone was drowning in the worst grief of their lives, the entire future of Elvis's estate had been reorganized around one person. And that person wasn't Elvis's father, wasn't Elvis's family, wasn't even Elvis's daughter. It was the ex-wife who'd left him 4 years earlier. Vernon asked me a question about 3 weeks after the funeral. We were sitting on the porch at Graceland, and he turned to me with this confused look and said, "Jerry, when did we decide to open Elvis's financial records to outside auditors? I don't remember agreeing to that." I didn't have an answer for him because he hadn't agreed to it. It had just happened while he was grieving, while he was signing papers he couldn't process, while someone else was making decisions in his name. That's when I knew this wasn't about protecting Elvis's legacy. This was about capturing it. Here's the lie that made everything else possible. Elvis Presley died broke. The estate was drowning in debt. Without Priscilla's intervention, there would have been nothing left for Lisa Marie. Graceland would have been sold. The legacy would have disappeared into bankruptcy court. That's the story. That's what you've heard 1,000 times. That's what justified every single decision Priscilla made for the next 4 decades. And it's complete garbage. I need to be very clear about something. I wasn't just Elvis's friend. I worked for him. I managed aspects of his business. I was in meetings about his finances. I saw contracts. I knew what money was coming in and where it was going. And when Elvis died in August of 1977, he was not broke. Was he liquid? No. Did he spend money like it was going out of style? Absolutely. Did he have debt? Yes, like most people who own multiple properties and support extended family and maintain a certain lifestyle. But broke, bankrupt, on the edge of financial collapse? No. Let me give you some numbers. The official estate valuation after Elvis died was about $5 million. After taxes and debts, it got whittled down to around $1 million for Lisa Marie's inheritance. And that became the foundation of the narrative. Look how little was left, look how dire things were, look how much needed to be saved. But here's what that valuation didn't include: Elvis's ongoing revenue streams. His music catalog was generating royalty income every single month. His merchandising deals were active and profitable. Concert footage and recordings had ongoing value. And Graceland itself, the property, the land, the contents, that was valued conservatively, very conservatively, for estate tax purposes. Elvis had just completed a tour 2 months before he died. June of 1977. He was still selling out arenas, still generating massive income. The touring operation didn't die with Elvis. The demand for his music, his image, his brand was about to explode, not disappear. I remember having a conversation with Elvis maybe 6 months before he died. We were talking about his finances. He knew he spent too much, he joked about it, And he told me he'd been working with advisors to set things up so Lisa Marie would be taken care of. He had investments. He had insurance policies. He had assets that were specifically earmarked for her future. So where did all of that go? Here's where it gets ugly. In those first months after Elvis died, there was an inventory done of his belongings. His cars, and Elvis had a collection worth hundreds of thousands of dollars even then. His jewelry, custom pieces, many with significant gold and diamond content. His stage costumes, his personal items, his memorabilia collection. All of it got cataloged. And who controlled that inventory? Who decided what was part of the estate and what wasn't? Who determined the value of these items? The executors, which meant Priscilla had her hands all over it. I watched items disappear, not physically vanish. I'm not saying there was a heist, but I watched things get categorized in ways that benefited certain narratives. I watched valuations come in lower than what I knew items were worth. I watched pieces of Elvis's collection get separated out, moved around, repositioned in ways that were explained as estate management, but felt like something else entirely. The real money wasn't in what Elvis had in the bank when he died. The real money was in what his name would generate moving forward. And Priscilla understood that immediately. She understood that Elvis Presley the person had died, but Elvis Presley the brand was just getting started. The debt crisis that justified opening Graceland to tour, let me tell you about that debt. Yes, there were expenses. Yes, maintaining Graceland cost money, but the estate also had income. Ongoing, substantial income from royalties and licensing. The math didn't require turning Elvis's home into a tourist attraction. That was a choice, a business decision, one that happened to give Priscilla enormous control over the physical space that represented Elvis's legacy. And the management fees, oh, the management fees. Because here's what most people don't understand about estate executors. They get paid. It's not volunteer work. And when an estate is generating millions of dollars a year, those fees add up. Over years, over decades. Priscilla was compensated for her role in managing the estate, handsomely. And beyond the direct compensation, there was the access, the authority, the ability to build her own career, her own businesses, her own relevance off of being the keeper of Elvis's flame. How do you put a price tag on that? How do you calculate what it's worth to be Priscilla Presley, the woman everyone has to go through to get anything Elvis-related approved? To have final say over his image, his music, his brand for 40+ years. I have documentation, personal notes from conversations with Elvis about his estate planning, photographs of items from his collection with his handwritten notes about who he wanted them to go to, receipts and records from deals that were in place when he died, records that show the estate wasn't in crisis, it was in transition. And here's the part that makes me angry even now, all these years later. Lisa Marie grew up being told that she should be grateful, grateful that her mother saved her inheritance, grateful that Graceland wasn't sold, grateful that there was anything left at all. But what Lisa Marie should have had, what Elvis wanted her to have, wasn't a trust fund managed by someone else. It was her father's legacy, intact and protected, held for her until she was old enough to decide what to do with it herself. Instead, she got a managed trust that she spent decades trying to untangle. She got an inheritance with strings attached. She got told over and over that the decisions being made were for her benefit while watching someone else profit from her father's name. Elvis didn't die broke. His estate didn't need saving. What it needed was honest management by people who put Lisa Marie's interests above their own. That's not what it got. There's a conversation I had with Elvis that I've replayed in my mind 10,000 times. It was early 1977, maybe February or March. We were at Graceland, just the two of us, late at night. Elvis couldn't sleep. That was happening more and more, and he started talking about what would happen after he was gone. He didn't think he was dying. This wasn't some premonition. But Elvis had watched his mother die young. He understood mortality in a way most people our age didn't, and he wanted certain things understood. He told me, "Jerry, if something happens to me, I need you to make sure my family is taken care of. Not just Lisa Marie, I know she'll be fine financially. But Daddy, Grandma, the cousins, the people who were there before any of this happened, they don't have anything except what I can give them. Promise me they won't be forgotten." I promised him, and I watched that promise get broken in slow motion. Elvis's vision for his family was simple. He wanted Vernon comfortable and secure for the rest of his life. He wanted Minnie-Me taken care of. He wanted the extended family, the aunts and uncles and cousins who'd been part of his world since childhood, to have access and support. Not as employees, not as charity cases, as family, because that's what they were. And Graceland? Elvis never, not once, mentioned wanting it to become a museum. He talked about it as home, as the place where Lisa Marie would always have roots, where family could always gather, where the people he loved could feel like they belonged. He specifically told me he didn't want his life turned into a spectacle. He'd spent 20 years being Elvis Presley the icon, Elvis Presley the commodity. He wanted some part of his existence to remain private, sacred, human. Every single one of those wishes was violated. Vernon died 2 years after Elvis, and in those 2 years he watched the family structure disintegrate. He watched Graceland start transforming from home into business. He died confused about what had happened to his son's estate, unclear about who was really in control, uncertain about whether he'd protected Lisa Marie the way Elvis wanted. Minnie-Me lived until 1980, but her final years were spent watching her family get systematically edged out of decision-making, watching Graceland become something foreign, watching strangers gain more authority over Elvis's legacy than the people who'd raised him. The extended family, the ones Elvis explicitly wanted taken care of, they got phased out, not all at once, but through the slow process of professionalization. As Graceland became a business, family became a liability. Their presence complicated the narrative. Their memories didn't always align with the brand, so they were quietly, politely moved to the margins. And Lisa Marie, Lisa Marie, Elvis's entire purpose in building wealth was to give his daughter security and freedom. He wanted her to have choices. He wanted her protected from the pressures he'd faced. He wanted her to inherit not just money, but agency, control over her own life and her own connection to him. Instead, she inherited a trust fund she couldn't access, a legacy she couldn't control, a father's memory that was managed by someone else. She spent her entire adult life fighting for what should have been freely given to her, fighting to understand finances that were supposedly for her benefit, fighting to have authority over her own inheritance. Elvis would have been devastated, absolutely devastated, to know that his daughter spent decades battling the very structures that were supposedly set up to protect her, that the people he loved got pushed out while someone who divorced him got to define his entire legacy. I have recordings, conversations with Elvis where he talked about his wishes, where he discussed his hopes for Lisa Marie, his concerns about the future, his specific instructions about family care. I've held onto these tapes for 47 years because I didn't know what else to do with them. Now Riley Keough, Elvis's granddaughter, is trying to untangle this mess, trying to understand what really happened to her grandfather's estate, trying to honor her mother's memory while dealing with the same forces Lisa Marie fought against her whole life. Riley deserves to know what Elvis actually wanted. She deserves to hear his voice, his words, his wishes in his own language. So I'm releasing the recordings, not for money, not for attention, but because the truth doesn't protect itself, and someone has to finally tell it. Jerry Schilling is 70 years old and he's done staying silent. The recordings he's held for 47 years are about to change everything we thought we knew about Elvis's final wishes and who betrayed them. This isn't the beginning of the story, this is the reckoning. Subscribe, because what comes next will rewrite history. The lies had their time. Now the truth gets its turn.